All right, cousin Tone. Our next guest needs no introduction. This gentleman is on absolute fire right now. I think everything he touches pretty much turns to gold. I mean, he's so good. We had to have him on for a second time on the Cousins Collectibles podcast. So without further ado, here he is, the alpha of the wolf pack, Mr. Rob Gerard, the sports card therapist. Welcome back to the Cousins Collectible podcast, brother.
Mi primos, gracias por invitarme. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Oh, that was beautiful. Was that Spanish or Italian? I couldn't tell.
Started out in Spanish and finished off in Italian. So it's
Yeah,
all good.
exactly.
That was good. That was good.
How you guys doing?
Good, man. So what's up, man? I'm like, bro, you're everywhere. Like
Am
you
I?
seem, yeah, dude, you are everywhere. It seems like you're dropping an episode every day. You're going live. You're getting deals left and right. Like, dude, come on, man. Like, what is going on? When did this all just blow up for you? Like, it's like your evolution from when we first met to now. It's insane. And like I said, you're riding high right now. So just talk about like just the last month, like just things that have been in the works for you and how everything's just come about. And we're gonna get a little bit deeper in what we're talking to, but it's just for you, like all the episodes and how you planned it out. And to basically, you always talk about leveling up, Rob. I think as a content creator, you leveled up. So talk to me about how you did that, man.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me back on the show, guys. I've told you guys from the start. I've been a listener. I've been a fan of your show from the beginning. I've never missed an episode. I believe if you count the content creator roundtable, this is my third appearance. You guys have two on mine, so
That's
I'm
right.
gonna have to bring you guys back again at some point, just so to even everything up. But yeah, man, I think it's definitely been a fun month for me. The saying that comes to mind when you ask that is when preparation meets opportunity. Um, I don't even know the phrase because I wasn't expecting that question, but it's just like one of those things. I mean, I'm on my solo podcast in the last 2 years. I'm on episode 145, so I'm on episode 145, and then when you count the bounce with Amil, I believe we had 37 episodes. So
Mhm.
just doing quick math in my head right now, I think that's 182 episodes in a 2 year period. So it's really, and it's been probably about 18 to 20 months. So that's a lot of episodes. It's a lot of content. So it's just hard work, I think, is like kind of paid off, and PWCC and we came to the table, and they just basically said, like, we love what you're doing. We would like you to come aboard a PWCC. And I was like, that would be great, but what would it entail?
Yeah.
And then we just kind of started talking and started ironing out all the details. And basically, I'm still free to do everything that I want to do, everything I've been doing. I'm just doing a Sunday night live auction for them, on YouTube Live, watching their weekly auction. And I'm focusing on the vintage because vintage has really been, what I've come to really find to be my true love in the hobby. And I've said it from the jump that at the top of my PC pyramid is Mickey Mantle and Hulk Hogan. From episode 1, that's what I've talked about. And when it comes to Hulk Hogan, I'm not talking modern. I'm really talking the vintage stuff. So
Right.
it just, the stars aligned, a little bit of luck, a lot of hard work, and here we are.
You say you don't talk about the modern, but right behind your right shoulder, you have that nice PMG Hulk Hogan that you got from the
True.
great curator.
That's
Now,
true.
That's a
now I
banger.
remember that whole thing, which was pretty cool. The two of you guys had that back and forth on Instagram, and that was pretty clever. The great curator is always good, and he's when it comes to content, he can't be beat. I mean, I love the great curator and what he does, and when the two of you teamed up, that was pretty dope. But how did that come about, man? Like, did you reach out to him? You saw that he had it, because
So yeah, so I think like all of us, and I'm no different, you know, when I really start collecting something and I'm talking about it and I'm putting it out into the universe, and when I put it out into the universe, I mean I'm kind of just talking about it on my show. You know, I talked about how my passion and how much fun, the feelings I get when I get a Hulk Hogan card, because I grew up on him. And so I mentioned how, you know, my goal would be one day to be a top 10 Hulk Hogan collector in the world. And that's a really tall task because there's so many, you know, people that grew up on Hulk Hogan, and the further I get into the wrestling card community, the more I see how many Hulk Hogan super collectors there are out there. And so anyway, so I had and the reason why I say like my goal is this, it's not because I want to be able to like have that title, right? It's not because I want to like be introduced to this club of like top 10. It's because for me, and I don't know if it's because of my day job of working with clients and setting treatment plans and goal setting and stuff, but for me, I need to have definitive goals in my life. I've always been that way. I need to have a goal so that way I know what I'm working toward, and when I've reached that goal, I get a feeling of yes, you know, like I've done it. Okay, now what's the next goal? And at any given time, you know, I think as human beings, we all have probably 5 to 10 different goals in different areas of our lives, you know, but
Mhm.
I need direction when it comes to my collecting. Um, so I had thrown it out there that I wanted to be a top 10 Hulk Hogan collector. And when I said that, I had multiple people reach out to me after hearing that. And they said, well, if you want to be a top 10 Hulk Hogan collector, you need a PMG. It's numbered out of 125, and there's only like 30 of them graded. So good luck finding one because they're all tucked away.
Yeah.
And a little birdie told me that the great curator had one, and I had never really met him before. I knew of him, he knew of me, so we started messaging and stuff like that and talking, and crunched some numbers and worked out a deal, and I ended up getting it. And I was just kind of he was just coming on my radar as far as like making really funny reels, like
Mhm.
making really funny 60-second clips and stuff. So I said, listen, man, since we're doing this deal, I pitched him the whole thing. The whole thing was my idea. I said, this is what you should do. You should throw it to me. I should throw it to you. And he was like, yeah, let's do it, you know. And then a couple days later, you know, we just kind of it happened.
The
And then I
magic
put
happened. The magic
yeah,
happened.
man, exactly. I put the reel together and I put it out there, and for about 2 hours, it felt like it was a moment, you know, got like
It
6,000
was
I got
it
like
was definitely a moment.
6,000 views and then stopped. So it was like,
That's what
you know,
usually happens.
yeah.
Now, Tony, you're looking. You have an eye on one of the great
do.
curators, PMGs. Why don't you talk about
I
that?
do. It's the Mike Tyson, and
Oh,
yeah,
you know what? Ken has his eyes on the
yeah.
same one.
Listen, one just went. So during the boom, they were
Oh, yeah.
crazy. I mean, just out of this world. I talked to him, and the price we talked about, I was like, what? I was like, I said, well, I remember asking him, and he gave me what he was asking for, and I said, well,
I'm
I said
assuming it was you don't have to say exactly what it was, but I'm assuming it was around 10K or more.
you
Yeah.
would be assuming correct,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, yeah.
So I told him, I said, okay, so his price was his price. I said, dude, we might be talking about two different cards. I said, because I'm looking here at Card Ladder, and we are nowhere close. And then he went into saying, hey, where these cars are hard to comp and things like that. And I get all that. I said, yeah, that's cool. I said, we were just way too far apart at the time. Now maybe a different conversation. I just watched one go for auction, and it was a PSA 9 and went for like 3K, a little over
What?
3K. Yes, sir.
That
Yeah.
that feels and sounds like a steal.
Yeah. Yeah. When I saw that, and I was like, oh man, it was a little deflating to me at the time. I was like, wow, but it is what it is. That's the comp now. So just saying. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's the comp. So,
But
Yeah.
I mean, so I had a similar conversation with the great curator, and not that I'm going to out our whole conversation or anything
Mhm.
like that, but I actually touched on this on the episode I just dropped earlier this week when I talked about how sometimes I'm willing to go when I'm moving cards. Sometimes I'm willing to go below comps or even like at comps, but some cards I'm like, no, like I'm literally double what comps are. I'm sorry. Like I just when you believe in a card long term, and I could remember having this conversation with the great curator about the Hulk Hogan PMG as well. And he made a great point. And now that I own one, I absolutely agree. It's like yeah, I see what they've sold for, but the thing is, that's the beautiful thing about owning cards is you don't you can determine what you sell it for, and really the value of it is what someone is willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
So, and if you believe in a card long term, then I'm all about holding it if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can see why some of those guys at shows, it's just how you go about it. But I don't care about the comp. I'm like, okay, I understand it's your card. You can sell it. But when you're talking about it in the way you're describing it, yeah, I totally get it. That
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan PMG is going to be tough to get out of your grips there. Somebody's going to come to you with a comp of, oh, well, the last one sold for $500. You're just going to be like, yeah, okay, well, so what? Not this one. So,
Well, in the grade I have, because I think mine's a PSA 7, because these things are
Mhm.
so hard to like,
Yeah.
it's like the PMGs, they just chip and they're so hard to get good grades on. But as of I think today, Card Ladder has the Hulkster valued at 7K. I was actually just looking at my collection right now, so I felt pretty good about that. I felt pretty
So
good that it
is that
feels
up?
like
Is that up or down from what you purchased it?
I can't say, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why, because the great curator actually asked me to not divulge what I paid for it because
The
he
wraps.
had another one that he's
Yeah.
looking to move. So
Yeah.
so yeah, he was, and I respect that, because
Respect that.
and anytime I do a deal with someone, if I know I'm going to be talking about it on the show, usually I'm like, hey, are you cool if I like mention the deal? Because I've always tried to be an open book, and that's one thing I've realized. One thing that I think really helped me grow my brand, like in the first 50 episodes. So I'm on episode 145 right now, and in the first 50 episodes, I started on Instagram. I started like putting together um like picture grids, and what I would do is I would go to and I would add text on them, and I would show the deals I made, and I would say I traded this away and for this, I traded this plus $500 cash for this, and then underneath on the bottom, and you could scroll back on my Instagram page and you could see them, on the bottom I would say what my rationale was for making that deal and why I made that deal. So, and people loved them. Those were like by far my most liked posts and commented on posts at the time. And, I would get people to DM me. And then I started really talking about a lot of that stuff on the show. And then it felt like the show was kind of starting to catch fire at that point. So,
Mhm.
and what that told me was that interests me. Like, like when I'm at a show and I'm setting up, I like I've made some, some bigger deals before. I've made some like 10, 20, 30K deals. I made a 35K deal once at the Hofstra show when I sold that John Morant RPA, and I had a crowd of people. I mean, there was 15 people just crowded, just watching us, listening to the negotiations. Like pe- people love hearing those details, and I know because I love hearing those
Yeah.
details. So why wouldn't I put that out in the podcast? So
Right.
that's why even now I talk so much about the cards I get, and I talk about how, well, you know what? Yeah, I've had that Babe Ruth for a year, and it hurt to move the Babe Ruth, but
Mhm.
everything happens for a reason, and it's because I moved that Ruth that I was able to pick up that George Miken,
Mhm.
and I didn't know it at the time, but it just everything kind of fell into place, and people like hearing about that,
Yeah.
and I
It's
feel
it's
like it
almost like being a fly on the wall, because
definitely.
it's the most interesting thing, and it's really the key to the hobby. We always talk about the cars, we talk about the people, but dealing, being able to work out a deal and trade and what to value something at. It's there's no classes on this. Nobody really, you don't go to school to learn how to deal in the hobby. You either have, you know, things that you do in life that you can bring to the hobby, but there's no real school. So when you have someone like yourself, Rob, and I think that's what really took your podcast to the next level, is like the detail and how you described everything, from just getting to the show, how you set up, and then people coming to your table, having the discussions, and how that flowed into, hey, I like that card. What do you got on that? And then, well, are you willing to trade? And so those little details that we don't know about, it's like, oh man, that's how it's done. Because it can be intimidating for somebody that's brand new, is not really familiar with going to shows. Like Tony and myself, we just started a couple years ago, so we've been to a handful of shows, so it's still new to us. So when we have something to fall back on, like, I remember Rob saying he did this, and this, let me try that out. And then you can, then you start to, once you do it a couple times, then you start getting your own flow to it. But I think that's, your success was because of that, just being upfront and honest, and letting it all hang out, basically.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well said, man. I mean, you're absolutely right, man. And just the way you worded it right there, I feel like that's the first time I've ever heard anyone kind of describe my show in that kind of way. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
Yeah. That's I mean, so if we're gonna, like you said, you pull back the curtain and you go into the detail. That's where I told you before we started recording, I'm prepping it. This will come out Monday. So yesterday I would have gone to the show to be the Fishtown Card Show. And I have a Wilt rookie. And I traded into it. I do. Yes, I do.
Whoa.
Yeah.
A very nice Wilt rookie.
Yeah, I have a very nice Wilt rookie.
You know what is nuts is just yesterday I sent out DMs to like 3 different people, telling them, saying like, hey, do you have any leads on a Wilt rookie?
Oh, I have one. So
that's crazy. So what do you have? What grade is it?
It's 4, I believe. I should have it. While I'm looking it up, but while I'm talking, I'm gonna let you know what I was thinking. So like I said, I traded into it, and I'm thinking, I'm like, man, could that be a piece that I use to move into a Tyson or something like that? PMG. Yeah, I think it's a 4. I'll have to show it to you.
What's the centering like on it?
Pretty sweet. Here, I'll flash it up on the screen. Yes, sir. The only thing that the top is a little thin, but left to right, it's pretty sweet. I'm put it up on the screen here for you.
Wow.
So you guys will be able to see that on YouTube.
Yeah. Top to bottom, it's a little.
Top to bottom, but
wow.
So yeah, it's really nice coloring on it, and I'm just thinking,
good for you, man.
Yeah, and I don't know, just that Tyson PMG has always been something kind of pie in the sky, but I'm like, man, do I move an iconic card such as a Wilt to get that type of card? I don't know. So,
well, I tell you what, I know when I went after a couple big John Stockton cards, like after National, it was like, I just remember Craig, shout out to Craig, New York City Sports Cards, and he goes, you're a Stockton guy now. And it was like, huh, just simply put like that. So when Ken, Sports Card Lessons, started slowly, getting out of his quarterback collection and his quarterback inventory, and he started picking up like some really good hockey cards, I'm like, man, you're a hockey guy now. So let me tell you something. If you moved a Wilt and you picked up a Tyson PMG, you know what we would have to say to you?
Yeah, I know. I'm the Tyson guy.
You're a Tyson guy now.
Yeah.
You're a Tyson guy.
Now.
Like, there's no way around that, because here's the thing. The market for a Tyson PMG is likely so small. However, when you do come face to face with a potential buyer, they will throw the kitchen sink at a card like that.
Yeah, that's where I'm torn a little bit, because I'm like, that will, and it doesn't have to necessarily be that card, but I'm just looking, hey, if I'm looking at my collection, what is one card that is a really big, heavy piece that I can lay out on the table as a starting point, or maybe even straight up, depending on what grade the thing is, and
just throw your Clemente and the Wilt, and you got a deal.
Right? Yeah. And then I just blow up my whole PC.
I tell you what, man. I mean, so I guess it's like, what's more important to you? Is it having these Philly cornerstone iconic cards, because those two cards right there are probably the two most iconic cards in Philadelphia history, right? And I mean, so it's like, what's more important to you, having like representing Philly in that manner? Like, what would give you those butterflies? And not the new card like mail day butterflies, but like
Right.
long term, like, wow, I have this. Would it be the Wilt or would it be the Tyson? And here's the thing, even a card as iconic as that Wilt Chamberlain, sometimes it feels like it is time to move it.
Mhm.
So you wouldn't be in the wrong for that, and you wouldn't be any less of a Philly fan if you did decide to move that. But
Yeah.
I tell you what, I can think of probably at least like 5 or 6 accounts that I know of, and I say accounts because it's like, but people, I could think of at least 5 or 6 people right now that would probably pay you 80% comps for that, like tonight.
Gotcha.
So just to
Yeah.
give you a heads up, it's like if
Yeah.
you're ever looking, I mean, I've had plenty of offers, even just the Bill Russell rookie PSA 1 I
Mhm.
picked up. I had like 5 offers at like 80% comps. And I'm like, I could probably get 100% comps. I think I really want to have a Bill Russell still. So I think I'm going to hold it.
Yeah. With the Will, I probably could get 100% comps, but yeah, it's like I said, the wheels are spinning, and I mean, if I put them pound for pound up, the feels for me is more Tyson. Tyson takes me back to
Wow.
being a little kid. I never saw Wilt play. Wilt, I have that card because it's an iconic card, and I can put that away. That very, in 20 years, maybe it's worth, a good buck.
And you guys talk
But
about that a lot too, right? I think it's
yeah,
Oz that really says it more. He's like, I haven't seen that guy play, so I don't collect that guy,
that's
Yeah.
Oz.
kind of thing, right? So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, like, I know you're a big Mickey Mantle guy, or,
Yeah.
you even have the Babe Ruth and the Russell. We've seen highlights. You haven't
Yeah.
seen anything about, Babe Ruth, just some old school film, but it's like, hey, he's the best baseball player ever. It's like, well, I guess, has anybody here ever seen him play? Well, no, but that's what we're told. So it's like I always talk about that in the hobby. It's almost like we're told these things and they become law. But we really don't know where it's coming from. And sometimes people take these laws too seriously, and then they frown upon others that collect a different way from that. And I really, I don't appreciate that about the hobby sometimes. Where say for example, there'll be a vintage baseball collector that'll look at a modern basketball collector and be like, yeah, all right, I guess I really wouldn't collect that. This is the right way to collect, and it's almost condescending at times. So it's like that's one aspect of the hobby where I believe like everybody should respect what you collect, because like Tony just said, Mike Tyson, that's my guy. So I might give up that Wilt to get Tyson because that's what hits him in the feels. And then somebody could be like, "Oh, you're crazy. It's Wilt Chamberlain all day." But that's what the hobby is, man. It's all different narratives, different opinions, but that's what makes it special.
And I think that's what's so great about you guys in your show, is that you guys are not collecting the mainstream stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, first of all, you guys have obviously great rapport, your family. You guys have great rapport, you're entertaining, you're funny, but you also collect, but you're not collecting what the mainstream does. You're collecting pop culture. I know Oz is a big Allen Iverson guy. I know that, Tony is a big Donovan McNabb, Randall Cunningham, and I'm just finding out now Mike Tyson guy. It's like, so you guys like have your feet planted in these kind of like niche collector, like, collector space. And I think that's really freaking cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We collect. So it's we haven't gotten to that point where we have inventory to, flip and stuff to help fund the collection. And I don't know, maybe we'll get there one day, but right now it's a lot of collecting and collecting and collecting. So but it's fun, we're collecting what that whole collect what you love thing. It couldn't ring truer. If you look at our PCs, they're very, if you look at my case, yeah, that's Tony. If you look at Oz's case, yeah, that's Oz. It's not the flavor of the week and things that are flipping all over the place. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't
Nothing wrong with
begrudge
that.
anyone. Okay. I do not begrudge
Yeah.
anyone for doing that. You can collect, like I just said, you can collect what you love and what you like. So listen, Anybody out there, do not let anybody take that away from you. If you're into modern, ultra modern, if you're into vintage, if you're into wrestling, like, sports card, nobody Shane, hockey, like the commish, like Ken, there's just so many different ways and flavors that you can go into this hobby. So do what you do. And I always say, listen, whatever it is that you're collecting, whether it's coins or whether it's, Charles Barkley or Allen Iverson or LeBron James or Hulk Hogan, like you wanted to be the top, top guy out there, just make that your goal. Aim for that. Whatever you're collecting, try to be the best out there. And it's not necessarily competition, but that, like if God forbid all this stuff, number one, went to zero, you would have a pretty dope collection. But if it didn't go to zero and you wanted to move that later on for something you needed an emergency, or you wanted to pass it out to, somebody in your family, that it would have some value because you built it the right way.
What I was going to say, begrudgment is a nasty trait. So I'm glad to know that, that you are not exercising that type of behavior. But without a doubt, and I think that's why relationships are so important in this hobby, is because if you do want to move things, or if you do want to, you put out feelers, right? I mean, you put out feelers and you're like, hey, do you know anyone that might want this? Do you know anyone that might want that? Like, I'm surprised. I mean, I'm hearing about these cards that, cousin Tony has that I never knew about. I didn't know he had all these wrestling cards before, I mean, and then we're coming on and he's talking about all these wrestling cards he has. And then, I hear he has a Wilt, and I know, cousin Oz, you're a big collector of the hot mom from Stranger Things. You know what I mean? So
Mrs. Wheeler, get it right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and I'm
I've
actually
never even
working
seen her. I don't even know what she looks like.
Well, here's the deal. I'm gonna let you in on a little thing. My daughter and I were working on a special reel that we're making just for you of Mrs. Wheeler. We're gonna get her in all her best moments so that you can finally figure out and see that she is the hottest mom on television.
Wow. Nice.
Wow.
So,
Hey Rob, real quick, let me ask you, what's makes you happier, a new card or a new tat?
ooh,
Card. It's got to be card. I'm running out of real estate when it comes to tattoos.
Nah,
So
you got the dome up there, man. You could do like the Bam Bam Bigelow.
I know, man. I know. Yeah.
could you imagine?
That'd be badass, man. He got some flames up there.
But I tell you what, man. I mean, tattoos are addicting, man. Do either of you guys have any?
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
do. Listen, I
my,
just went to my brother-in-law just
My mom.
passed. Yeah. Oz is a wuss. My brother-in-law just passed, and he was a tattoo artist. And we went down to see, they had this. They call it a celebration of life. It wasn't
Yeah.
even if and it was cool hanging out. And all the people that came to this event, the only family that was there, he moved away, and they have my wife. It's just her and her brother. They have a very small family, and all the people that came to see him, talking about, this guy, a lot of tattoo artists. Yeah, but you're also a therapist. You listen to people's problems. Like, there's a whole thing going on, and sometimes and most of the time people get those tattoos. It's very meaningful. It could be whatever it is. So, yeah, it's a whole thing there with art. But let me ask you, brother, we got to talk about the wolf pack. It's required mentioning when we get together.
Definitely.
But let's just talk about what it was, just real quick, but where you think we're going. And I mean, this thing is rolling, man. We we got the network set up, but just give me your goals with the wolf pack and what you see in the future.
Well, the wolf pack, it really just started from just a chat. It's like I was starting to build these relationships with people in the hobby. Craig was New York City Sports Cards was absolutely one of the first people to reach out to me. I still remember where I was the first time he ever reached out to me. I believe I was in Chicago at National, and I had about 4 episodes of my podcast out at that point, and I'm just sitting there bored in my hotel room after this long day, and I'm just and then he messaged me, and I'm just messaging with him, and from there he was just like, I mean, he believed in my podcast and would psych me up about every episode, like in a way that none of my friends or family did, so that, like, just the fact that he kind, and he's a lifelong collector. He's a teacher, New York City, so we're pretty close, as far as where we live. I mean, we live less than an hour away from each other, and it just, so we immediately I'm like, man, I like this guy, not just because he's telling me good stuff about the stuff I'm putting out, but I'm like, I can remember saying to him, like, dude, I want you to be the guy that can, like, critically tell me, like, that episode sucked, like, because I'm trying to do something here, with this podcast. And I had Ken that I worked with, and we kind of fell out of touch, and I hit him up once, and I was like, hey, do you collect cards? And
Yeah,
he was like,
that was when you were
actually,
reaching out to everybody, right?
oh, I
You were
was
like,
reaching out to
just
everyone, man.
your Rolodex. Hey, do you collect cards?
I reached out to like 15 people that were in my fantasy league,
Yeah.
fantasy
Wow.
football, that I knew were big sports fans, and he was the only one that said yes. And I was like, well, I'm going to national in like a month. Would you want to go? He's like, I don't think so, but thanks for the invite. It's just like, so
Like,
anyways,
what's
and
with
then
this weirdo?
exactly. And then Dave I met from, just setting up at local shows and stuff. And like, I was having all these like separate conversations with them, and, like, so like 3 different DMs going on. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to, like, I didn't even ask them. I just started up a group chat with us 4 and called it the Wolf Pack. And I was like, guys, introduce yourselves, like, hey, this is blah, blah, blah. And it just kind of like started from there, and it was just, you know, we all need a group of people. I feel like we all, surround yourself with people who you want to be like. That's how I feel like, and I don't mean that in a way like, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Like, I know over the course of my life, I've always gravitated toward the older crowd. And I don't even mean like as a youngin, I hung out with the older kids and I got into like, but like, let me tell you, like when I was 25 years old, I had a Harley and I was riding with all 50-year-olds that had Harleys. You know what I mean? My wedding party, like 3 of the guys were 50 and older and they were friends. So it's like, I, a male relationship for me is needed. I need to have men in my life who I can talk to on a real level, that I can break balls with, but also I feel like will hold me accountable and call me out if there's something that maybe I say or do that, I'm not seeing that's wrong. So, you know I think the bond just kind of grew from there, and then it just kind of happened like with you guys. I mean, I'm sitting here having, pretty regular conversations with you guys individually and together, and I know Craig is having those conversations with you, and Craig and I are like, kind of on the side, like, yo, I really like Cousins, man. They're like real, like, you could ask Craig, man, we're having these conversations, like, man, they are like, love those dudes, you know what I mean, kind of thing. And and then just one day we're like, dude, listen, join this chat, join the Wolfpack chat,
And I remember you sending the message over, and then Tony's like always on point. He's in every, whenever there's a message that goes out, he's right there. He's seen it because he's really never doing anything. He says he works, but I don't believe it. And but he was nowhere to be found at that moment in time. So I'm waiting for him to respond. I didn't want to. You're like, hey, you guys want to join? And I didn't want to be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And Tony would go, wait, hold on, wait a minute. Let's talk about this first. So I was just like, I'm waiting, and I text him and still wait. I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm like, hell yeah. What do we got to do? Where do we got to go?
Yeah, man. And I think just being around like-minded people, motivating each other, building each other up, to me, that's really what it's been all about, man. I mean, I'm and I think the reason why I've been like this my whole life is because with just wanting to surround myself with good men that have qualities that I want to be like Tone. How long you been married now?
15 years.
15 years. So I've been with my wife 15 years actually, but we've only been married for 7. So it's like, Tony can teach me a lot about being married and staying married for, a long period of time. Oz has a career that he's going to have, hopefully a great retirement with, and he's got kids who he's going to be a grandfather soon. like if I ever have any questions about that kind of stuff, like he's the kind of guy I want to go to, you know. So if I'm a married man, there's no reason why I should be hanging out with a bunch of single friends. So it's like I gravitate toward the people who I want to be like, have good qualities that I see in them, and that'll hold me accountable. And that's what I feel like we have in the wolf pack. You know, I feel like, you know, we've had disagreements, we've
Mhm.
had stuff where, you know, I feel like I've had words with everyone in the wolf pack, and if you haven't yet with each other, you probably will. But I think
Yeah.
that only kind of brings the bond, makes the bond stronger. You know.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like you said, just holding people accountable. And I would hope the same. And you've done it with me, and I've done it with you, and I've
Yep.
done it with Tony, and it's just like, listen, bro, I don't agree with that. And it's just, like you said, it builds the bond that we have with each other. But at the end of the day, man, this whole thing, I just want everybody to know this wasn't, it's not fake. It's real. You know what I mean? It's organic. And there may be people out there like that are looking at this and like, Wolfpack, it's kind of recycled. What are they trying to do here? Because you know how it is. The
Yep. Yep.
hobby, we were having a conversation earlier. Like sometimes our mentality in the hobby, it's like we're stuck in high school sometimes with the drama that goes on. Um, but at the end of the day, what we got going on here, this is the real deal. This wolf pack, regardless of the name, you could say, like I said, we copied it, whatever, what have
Yep.
you. It's guys that got together, that love to collect cards, and that are special in their own way, in unique way, and we all have bonded through the cardboard, but it's much bigger than that. And and the thing is, look, we each can contribute to the hobby in our own way. So yeah, we can keep the DMs to ourselves and we can keep chatting, but it was like, yo, why don't we just take this next level? Let's start doing things that we can give back to the hobby that has given so much to us, and it's like I always say, it's not about, you know, promoting and doing this and that and trying to, get more views and that. No, it's like, listen, the amount of knowledge that's going on in these conversations, let's just share that with the hobby because like I said, Rob, the big thing with you, that's what you do. And then there's certain aspects and point of views that we have and certain aspects that Shane has and, Ken and so on and so forth, Carmine and Dave and Craig. So, you know, all together, man, I think it's a powerhouse that we can just go ahead and share knowledge that'll help the hobby and move it forward, going into 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, and I tell you what, man, it's like you guys have inspired me in the way that I've done things. You know, when you guys started doing your wrap ups, I was like, that's a freaking great idea. Like, so I I saw you guys did a wrap up, and I was like, man, I'm gonna do a wrap up for each week of these roundtables because
Mhm.
there's so much that went into the roundtables, and I had so much I wanted to say
Yeah.
about, and this was, I'm referring to the month of December. I did
Yeah.
3 roundtables a week. I think there ended up being 14 roundtables
Bro,
for
I
the
don't I
entire
don't
month.
know how the hell you did it, but
Dude,
kudos to you.
well, you know what? Listen, man, it's crazy. I was just talking to Ken today on the phone, and I was telling him that I don't think a day has passed in the last 6 weeks where I haven't gotten at least one message from someone talking about the roundtables. I had someone randomly message me yesterday, someone I've never heard from, someone who was the first time he had ever messaged me. He said, "Hey man, I'm just kind of catching up on all your episodes. These were my two favorite roundtables right here." And he referenced them. So it's like every single day I'm getting messages about them, and I don't know if it's coincidence or if it's a lot of hard work and it helped get me noticed, but it's like within a month of wrapping up the hardest month of my content creating life with those roundtables, within a month, I end up striking a partnership with PWCC. So it's like I think I knew what I was getting into, but at the same time, I didn't know what I was getting into because that was a lot just to organize, 14 roundtables, and each roundtable having anywhere between 2 to 4 people on it, just trying to get schedules together,
Yeah.
just trying to figure out. So I had like
Yeah.
14 group chats going, not to mention the wolf pack, not to mention this vintage chat I'm in, with so much DMing. It took up so much time. So anyway, so when I saw that you guys did the wrap up, the first wrap up, I was like, man, I need to borrow that idea because there was so much going on regarding those roundtables, so much that I wanted to say
Yeah.
outside of the roundtable. Like I wanted to be able to speak about the roundtable.
Yeah.
And if I waited till January, it would have been stale. Like
Right.
I would have lost all like emotion and drive to probably talk about that first, second, and third roundtable. So to me, it was vital to do those wrap up episodes. And without you guys, I wouldn't have done that. That idea wouldn't have been planted in my head.
Yeah, appreciate that. Two things before I kick into Oz with the PWCC. On the 15-year marriage thing, just to quote old Otis from Martin, it's cheaper to keep her. So that's number one. Yeah, but no, and see, my wife, she's gonna be happy that I got the 15 years right, but then I go and say cheaper to keep her, so I'm gonna get
I know,
smacked for that. But anyways, but real quick, what I was saying about us sharing what we're learning, I got a DM just and I it's a mutual listener that we have, and I just real quick, he said he's talking about he appreciates what we do and things like that. And he goes, if it wasn't for you guys and the other podcasts, he goes, I'd be lost just buying blasters still and putting raw cards back in boxes, things like that. And I said to him, he's talking about he's learning through listening to podcasts. I said, that's exactly how I learned. And I said, this hobby is great, but there are a lot of people out there that want to hold on to these hobby secrets. Us, we're opening the window and we're just letting everybody in. That's how I look at it. Enough of this keeping secrets and gatekeeping, all that crap. Nah, man, we're in. We're just letting everybody in the club. So
Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Because I just think it makes for a better hobby and a better experience for everybody. Where if you're buying blasters and you're just getting the raw end of the deal all the time, you're not going to stick around. So just why not give out whatever you learn and secrets, or they shouldn't be secrets. They just be like, hey, this is kind of what the way things go, and I know just make for more educated collectors. So.
And you know what? That's something luckily I've never gotten into. Thinking back when I was younger, I got to imagine that I opened up packs. I can remember getting a couple boxes of stuff, but even as a kid, even as like a 7, 8, 9 year old, I just remember having a shoebox of cards with cards and top loaders. They weren't penny sleeved because I don't think any of us really realized the importance of penny sleeving cards and top loaders. But I just, I had my cards in shoe boxes, and it was always singles. I would go into card shops. I would never buy packs. It was always singles. And luckily, when I got back into the hobby a few years back, I didn't buy into breaks. I didn't buy into razzes. I wasn't buying wax. I wasn't ripping open anything. I literally just bought singles. And I think even though I probably lost a lot of money buying because, I was buying at the peak just like everyone else, but I knew what I was buying, and what I was buying, luckily, I was still able to get some value out of it when I moved it. So that was really good. And really, I think if you have even just halfway decent, like if you have a $10 single, you can literally take that, add $10 and probably trade up into a $20 card with someone, because someone else is going to be like, yeah, I can move that $10 card, and yeah, I want that $10 in cash. And you never know what dealers are, motivated. And so I'm going to a show at the time of this dropping. I went to a show over the weekend. So I went to a show on Saturday, I'll put it that way. But my plan, and I'm actually walking the show with Ken, and I'm going there with cash. And I think the first question I'm going to ask a dealer, I know most of the dealers there, they know me, but I'm going to say, you motivated? How motivated are you?
Right.
Because what that means is like, hey, I got cash. And don't get me wrong, I've been there. I've set up at shows before where I've gone there and been like, I better make some sales today. I better make some sales because either A, I have card invoices, or B, I have stuff in my eBay cart, or C, I just want to be able to go home with some money so I could throw to my wife so she'll be happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's number one.
Oh yeah, I should have said that as number one.
Yeah.
But So there are some days I've been motivated, and there have been days where I have sold stuff at 75% comps that I didn't want to, but I did. So tomorrow I'm going to the show cash heavy, and I'm looking to, probably buy some stuff, hopefully at 75% comps, but also stuff that'll make me happy that I can PC,
Right.
you
Gotcha.
know.
Nice. Now, let's get to the good stuff, Mr. Robert.
Yes.
PWCC.
That's the good stuff.
That's the good stuff, baby.
Okay,
I
I
gotta
thought
know.
I thought this was all the good
Yeah.
stuff. But
Well,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
that's yeah. But I just listen. I need to know the ins and outs, baby. I need to know how this all went down. I need to know just everything about it. You touched on it earlier,
Yep.
but because Tony and I, we do this. We haven't heard any sponsors. They're not knocking down our door, so we have no idea how any of this goes down. So tell
Well,
us how
yeah. So I tell you, man. So I didn't know I was really laying down some serious foundation in season 1 of Sports Card Therapist. But it's crazy because I feel like I'm constantly referencing season 1. Season 1 is the season I reference more than anything. I think it's because it was just such a learning journey for me. And, each season of my show has been 50 episodes. So season 1 for me, I think the two of my favorite episodes that I did that get referenced the most to me by listeners when I meet them, even now, are
can I guess one?
the art. What was that?
Well, let me guess. Can I guess both?
Sure.
All right. It's the art of the deal.
Yep, the art of trading. Yep.
Art of the deal. Yeah, the trade. And then
That's the art of the deal is someone else.
Yeah, that's
trading
that's Trump. That's
But,
the Trump
okay.
book. But yeah, the art of trading.
Art of trading and participation is required.
Man, you're good. You are good, man. Yeah. So those are definitely the
Fanboy.
two. Yeah, those
I
are
do
the
my
two.
research, baby.
Yeah,
All right.
man. Those are the two that definitely get referenced the most. So I can't tell you how many times people have messaged me and just been like, wanting to pick my brain on something. And I'm like, listen, do me a favor. Watch this episode
Yeah,
first, then
go
come
listen.
back to me. And I'll literally send them the link to the art of trading, and a lot of times I won't hear back from them. And I'm thinking it's because either I answered their question or maybe they didn't watch it. I don't know. But participation required without a doubt is probably the most quoted. And for me, participation is absolutely required in this hobby. And I'm not saying it's required to have fun and enjoy it, but for me, to accomplish the things that I've wanted to accomplish, which is setting goals and reaching goals, I need to be active. I need to be an active participant in this hobby. So everything from setting up at shows, doing podcasts, going to shows, all those things have kind of snowballed and led me into other things. And I'm going to answer your question in a minute, Oz, because I'm getting to it. But so by going to local shows, shaking hands, kissing babies, doing all those things, that led me to meeting some of the bigger show promoters in the area, which led me to hosting trade night at the Basketball Hall of Fame. That was a huge thing for me. That was a huge thing on my resume. After I was done with that, after that night, I said, you know what? If I never do this again, that will always be on my resume that I hosted a trade night at the Basketball Hall of Fame. So that was really cool. From there, I got asked to co-host trade night at Probstein's show. And the other hosts were Santiago Sports and Jay Mojo Sports. And so it was like, okay, here I am now. All of a sudden, I'm with these guys who are like big YouTube personalities.
Mhm.
And with I wouldn't have been able to get that kind of opportunity without participating in all these other aspects of the hobby. So as I'm starting to like rub shoulders and talk with these guys who, like, even though they're younger than me, they feel like hobby vets. They kind of feel like it's almost like they know what the secret sauce is, like, to
Yeah.
really get out there. So through having conversations with people, people have said, like, listen, these companies, these big companies out here, and I don't need to name the marketplaces and the companies. We all know, like, the big 3 or 4 companies that are out there, right? But many people have said, listen, they're going to be looking to hire content creators who they feel like, A, can represent their brand well, and B, who can bring listeners and viewers to their marketplace or their brand, and C, already really have like a following or a listener base. Because it's just like a record label, right? Like, yeah, I can go out and do what Jermaine Dupri did with, Crisscross, and find two kids at the mall and hope I can build them up into a success. You like the Crisscross reference? Um, but most these record labels, though, what they want to do is they want to find a band that's already established, so they don't really need to put in the work. They could just put some money behind it and boom. So knowing that, and I've had these conversations with some of these bigger personalities who we all know, we all see on Instagram, we all see on YouTube, and they're like, just watch, man, these companies are going to start picking us up and trying to get us to, work for them. And you know sure enough, I had a bunch of conversations. I've turned down partnerships before. I've turned down advertising before for my show. Like auction houses that wanted me to read an ad like at the beginning of my show or at the middle of the show. Like I turned it down. Like it just didn't align with what I wanted to do. Like, yeah, it would be great to have an extra $50 or $100 an episode, so it feels like I'm getting paid for it. But I felt like it wouldn't have been right for me because I didn't even use that brand.
Mhm.
I wanted a brand that I could like stand behind and
Yeah.
feel good about. So when I started talking to PWCC, basically they asked me like, pitch us something. Like, what do you think? We want to be like in business with you, but tell us your ideas. And I started telling them some ideas, and it just kind of happened. I think everything, we're the sum of all of our experiences, and
Mhm.
every vintage guest I've had on, every even modern guest I've had on, that's made me realize, like, yeah, I like modern, but I just have a stronger appreciation for vintage, and going down that rabbit hole. It's like when I brought on Nate and Cardboard Veritas on Instagram, when I brought on Nate the first time on my show, I had already gotten my 51 Mickey Mantle. I had already gotten that, and I was already, really dipping my toe in vintage. But when he came on, and I told him this afterwards, when he came on, he literally threw gasoline on my internal fire for vintage. It just turned it up a notch. And ever since then, man, it's just been really nothing but vintage for me. And luckily, when I started talking to PWCC, I said, listen, I said, I would love to be the face of vintage for PWCC. And they said, we would love that too. So
Awesome.
what can you do? And that's kind of how it went, and
So is it like the you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street, right?
yeah.
Okay. When he's like, "Sell me this pen." What was it like that?
That's cool. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I wasn't as intense like that,
He's
I,
like,
w-
"No,
I,
no, no, no. Sell me this
I, w-
pen."
I wasn't high on Quaaludes or anything. What was it? The lemon drop 315s or something? No,
Yeah.
I wasn't. Yeah, I didn't have any of those yet. They hadn't kicked in, I guess.
Yeah.
But
That's fair.
yeah, so and I truly believe that moving forward too, more and more of these companies are going to continue doing that, and I think that's why it's so important that, not that that was ever my goal, but I try to be my true authentic self, whatever that
Mhm.
is, and that's what I like about you guys, because I just get that from you. I don't get that you're faking the funk or anything like that,
Well,
like you guys aren't switching up, like, you know what I mean?
Nah.
And I think if they wanted me to be something that I wasn't, then I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. And that's the key, Rob, because it's like it's almost like a job interview. They're like, sell us something. So what's your ideas? The thing is, you are just being you. This is what I feel about the hobby. That I love these vintage cards. I feel like I can promote these, and this is how I can do it. Like these are all things that you were already thinking of before PWCC even came into the picture. So it came, it went from, it could have been a stressful interview where you just froze up and you're like. No, it was just like, okay, I love this hobby. This is what I love doing. This is what I'm thinking. And you sealed the deal, bro. I'm proud of you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely been a great couple weeks. And I think it really is just the beginning, because I think that with these other companies that are building marketplaces as well, and with fanatics, and it's a lot. And by the way, I don't even know if we've talked about it in the Wolfpack chat, but all over Connecticut and Eastern New York, all the card shows, Adam Sandler's film crew have been there interviewing people. Did we
Oh,
talk about that in the Wolfpack chat?
we did. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
so like Adam Sandler has a sports card memorabilia movie coming out, and I think there's more shows on Netflix coming out. So it's like, I think that this hobby, I think that even though the hobby boom happened and now the waters have kind of calmed down, I think that the sea level did rise and all the ships kind of came up with it a little bit, and the tide might have receded a little bit and went back down, but the basement floor has been permanently raised. So I think that's what people I think that's what these companies are going to want. These companies are going to
Yeah.
continue to look to who's making noise and who would we feel comfortable representing our brand? Who would we trust enough
Mhm.
to put our faith and our money into?
Yeah.
Right.
So, but with success comes hate. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, because we've seen a couple comments out there. What do you
Yep.
say to those guys that Rob sold out? That's somebody might be saying that,
Yeah.
thinking that. What do you say to that?
I mean, there's nothing I can say,
Yeah.
I mean, I just hope that my what I've been doing this whole time doesn't change. Now, I know the one thing that's going to change, at least in the short term, is that I gave up a little bit of real estate on my podcast, so my Monday episodes are going to be a recording of the live that I did the night before, and I'm very cognizant of that, and that's why I don't I try to be as descriptive and educational as possible on these lives when I'm talking about these vintage cards, because like kind of like Oz said, man, like I really want to, with the help of my co-host Nate and with the help of the guests that I'm going to be bringing on, I definitely want to help educate the hobby, at least on Mondays, at least on my Monday episodes, and at least on the Sunday night PWCC live, watch party that I'm streaming. I really want to educate the hobby on these vintage sets and on these vintage cards, because they're incredible. The history of them are just, I'm fascinated by them. When you see a 1914 Cracker Jack card, okay, a 1914 Cracker Jack card, that means that that card was actually in a box of Cracker Jacks. You could see the oil stains and everything, the sugar stains on them. And it makes you makes you wonder, like, I wonder if a kid opened up this box at the ballpark, and pulled this card out and he's looking at it, put it in his back pocket. Maybe he put it in his wallet so it wouldn't get creased, and you think about like the lifespan of these cards and what they've
Mhm.
been through. Some of these cards are older than the oldest living person on earth.
Yeah.
I own some cards that are older than my oldest relative right now, which is my grandmother, who's 84, 85. So there's a lot that goes into it, man. And even just thinking about some of these stories, it's like I can get emotional just kind of making up my own story of what this card was and the journey that this card took. Like this card made it through World War II. This card somehow made it through Vietnam. This card made it through all these things, and here we are with it now. And I don't know, to me it's like I'm not trying to knock modern, because as you guys can see, I have a couple modern cards behind me. So I'm not trying to just crap on modern, but to me, there's something incredible about that card making it 100 years or 50 or 60 or 70 years,
Mhm.
as opposed to this card that literally just came off the printer at the Panini factory 3 weeks ago.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's what vintage does for me. I know Oz says about I never saw the players play, but I've talked about I was like, yo, who had this card? Like
Yeah.
how does it even still here?
Yeah.
It's that's what vintage does for me. Like you described it to a T. That's exactly when I hold a vintage card, I'm like, man, how many people have owned this? How the heck does this even make it out of a pack, let alone and it made it into a slab. They didn't start slabbing these things until what, the 90s for PSA or so.
Yeah.
So this, the 55 Clemente, it was a long time before that thing even got, into a slab. So that definitely that's what hits the fields for me.
And then
Uh,
with like just to jump in real quick with the modern cards, it's like when a modern card gets graded, um, it's like, okay, say it's a PSA 9 or a PSA 10. It's like, okay, like you look at the card, you see it, and it's cool, it's shiny, and you could talk about the card for probably about a good 5-10 minutes, right? Like you could talk about all the aesthetics of it, how it looks, and the grade, the set. You could probably talk about a good 10-15 minutes, but
Mhm.
when it comes to vintage, man, like the grades don't always tell the story. And that's why sometimes you'll see a PSA 4 sell for more than a PSA 6 of the same exact card, because it truly is about eye appeal, and it's truly about the preference of the buyer and what it is they're looking for, things that they can overlook, and rounded corners and soft edges. Like most vintage guys don't mind that.
Mhm.
Most vintage guys, it's like nowadays it's like, oh, if it's not a PSA 10, then who cares?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
oh, what's that Mahomes graded? That optic Mahomes? It's a 9. Oh, I'm all set.
Yeah.
You got any tens? You got any tens? And it's like,
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
it's
I
such a
don't.
huge like learning curve in the hobby. There's all these lessons that we talk about Ken's sports card lessons, but like just that whole when you come in brand new and like you said, all you're thinking about is a gem min 10. That's what you're almost programmed to whatever card I want to get, I want to get a 10. And then you start delving into these older cards, these vintage cards where a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and it's you got to kind of like just rework everything in your brain to be like, you know what, that's 10 times better than that.
Yeah.
And it's a process, and once you realize exactly what you're looking at, and like you said, the history of it, and like I said, I'm not that I wouldn't collect this stuff. It's just like I said, I have things that hit me in the feels different, but like I respect the crap out of vintage. I love vintage. There's cars that I want to get, like the Wilt Chamberlain and the Bill Russell, and then even going back even further, we're gonna get into that card, the George Miken, because I'm
Mm,
such a huge basketball guy, and of course wanting to have a Babe Ruth and a Mickey and a Willie, and a Clemente,
yeah. Dude,
Clemente, when we first started,
yeah,
that was one of my guys, and then Tony, took, he said this is gonna be my PC, so I was like, all right, I'll stand back. I'm not gonna, go down that road because that's your guy. So, but I respect all those cards and I love vintage and like you said, the history of it. But it's a little bit of a learning curve when you come in to be able to respect it. So that's definitely pretty cool. Now let me ask you, Rob. So you're
hold
gonna
on
have
real
go ahead.
quick. Hold on. I just want to give you one quick example, and then because I
sure.
don't want to
Sure.
move off of this. So real quick, shout out to David, Basketball Card Paradise on Instagram. Man, the guy has an incredible account. I've done a ton of deals with him, met him in person a ton of times at shows on the East Coast and stuff. I just bought this card from him last week. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. So this is a 1961. Oh,
Mm.
look at that. The green
Yeah.
is completely gone because the
Yeah, I thought
green
that was a
screen.
new card. I was like, what is that?
I know. So this is a 1961 Bill Russell. All
Nice.
right. This is a PSA 3. This is his base version of the card. Okay. Now you look at that card, there looks like there's nothing special about that. Okay. But if you know this set, 1961 Fleer, and when Cousin Tone was talking about the Wilt, the first
Mhm.
thing I asked him was what's the centering
Yep.
like? I
Yep.
asked him, what's the centering like? Because this set is notorious for
Miscut.
being miscut and off centered. So this card right here, look at how this is considered very well centered, this Bill
Mhm.
Russell. If you look at the edges, this is considered very well centered. So I saw that David from Basketball Card Paradise had this for sale on his Instagram story. So I hit him up and I said, "Hey man, what's going on? What are you asking on the Russell?" He gave me a price. So I go to look up comps. Comps are all over the place. Okay. Comps are all over the place. You know why? Because of centering.
Yeah.
So I could have an SGC3 like this is right here, but if it is off centered and it's like literally off the card, I mean that's going to completely nosedive the value. So we almost had to throw comps completely out the window. Like you look at comps just to kind of gauge like a ballpark of where you might be, but at the end of the day, it's literally up to you guys to try to come up with what you think would be a fair value for the card. And
Listen.
that's the fun in vintage. It
Mhm.
really is. It's not like, oh, this guy in Wyoming just sold this card for $200 when the last comp was $350. Now I just lost $150 in value on it. It's like, no, not at all. Not at all. You know what? Because there were some 2.5s that sold for like $300 more than I got this 3 for. And then there were some 4s that sold for less than this 3. So it's really fun. It's an added dynamic when you're dealing with like vintage cards. And like I said, don't get me wrong, I like my modern too. I like my 90s too. You know, I've been picking up a lot of 90s and early 2000s cards that are in person on card autos, so in person signed, because I think those are really super undervalued. So I've been buying up Jeters, I've been buying up Ichiros, I've been buying up these guys who are goats, and I think will be looked at 30 years from now the same way we look at Mickey Mantle, Jackie Robinson, and Willie Mays now. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of like loading up on some of those.
Yeah.
I just actually bought a card today. I'm super excited to get and these are all like long-term holds for me in my mind, because I'm just going to overprice the hell out of them in my case and just
Right.
have them kind of take up real estate, you know, in my case, just
Show
to
them
kind of
off,
draw,
and
just
if
to draw.
somebody gives you a
Exactly.
offer you can't refuse, you sell it. But for the most part, check it out. Look at this.
Exactly. So I've been picking up Jeter on card autos, like his minor league cards, his first, not even his first year cards, because the first year he actually played a game was 95, I believe, for the Yankees. I'm picking up 92, 93 Derek Jeter on card autos. So his most iconic card of all time. I'm not sure how big of baseball and Jeter
Yep.
fans you are, but
Mhm.
do you guys know what his most iconic
Yeah.
card of all
It's
time is?
that I forget the name. It's the one where he's like throwing the ball underhanded.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. The
Is that the
93
Ken
foil.
Golden one
It's
where
the
he
foil.
ripped?
Yep.
Yeah, the foil.
Yeah, it's the foil. So I bought today, I bought a foil Derek Jeter on card auto. I've never even seen one in person before. Never seen one in person. And
Nice.
I'm watching like 3 of them, and he never signs. He like rarely ever signs. So these are likely all very early career signatures. And I'm watching like 3 of them on eBay right now, or I was watching like 5 of them, and they were all like thousands, going for thousands. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna watch them, And then earlier this week, I got a discount offer. You know how like all the watchers will get a discount offer? I got an offer for 78% off one of those.
What?
And I was like, what?
What?
I'm like, this guy
Motivated?
obviously needs money, right? Like
Yeah.
obviously he's at that point where, because he was priced right around where everyone else was,
Yeah.
which is like 4 grand or more. Like 4 grand or more, you know. So I
Yeah.
went on eBay and saw that, and I got it for $700, PSA graded, authentic, but everyone's asking 4 grand or more. And
That's
this guy,
insane.
78% off out of the blue. One of the most unexpected things I've ever
You
seen.
know what I say to that? Participation is required, brother. Because
Yeah.
if you're not participating, you don't get those kind of deals.
Sure.
Yeah.
And back to your with the vintage real quick.
Yeah.
Last night I got offered a Clemente PSA 6 for my PSA 5 straight up. I was like, nah.
Yeah.
I
Are
was
you
like, I'm
serious?
good. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. I'll talk about it off air, but I was like, nah, I'm good. I was like, nah.
Yeah. I was like, nope, don't
Good
do it.
for you. Good
Yeah,
for
no.
you.
Yeah.
I bet I I probably know why. It probably had sharper corners, sharper edges, but it was probably like really off centered.
Yeah,
Like a mug.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a mug. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and the thing is too, like that's what happens, man. Like, and the thing is, it's like once you see it off centered, and if that's if you're a centering snob, and I'm
Yeah,
not going to say a snob, but most vintage people are. The two top things with vintage, it's usually centering and registration. And
Mhm.
registration is like the clarity of the picture because sometimes they look kind of fuzzy because the
yeah,
printers weren't great back then. But yeah, registration and clarity. That's why it's like give me rounded corners and soft edges all day. If it's centered and the clarity of the picture looks good, I'll take it.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Coming down the home stretch here, brother.
Yeah.
2023 goal for national.
Oh man. Well, I tell you, I mean, we've been talking, right? Like the Wolf Pack, we've been talking, and again, this is something, an idea that you guys had. I knew I wanted to try to put something together, but it was really just like it was like a Family Guy thought, like above my head. It was like a thought bubble. It was like national, meh,
Yeah.
meh, you know. And then you guys were like, "Listen, this is what we got to do. We got to try to put together something, this, that, and the third." And it was like, you know what? I agree. I agree. And so we've been looking to try to put something together, and it seems like the hobby definitely feels like, and I'm not knocking the hobby or the higher ups because it almost feels like I'm slowly entering this club. But it feels like it's kind of like a good old boys club, kind of like you need to have permission and you need to know the password, and if people don't like you or if people don't know you, they're not going to really give you the chance. And we talked about that today, right? About reaching out to people to come on our
Right,
podcast as guests, right? And like being left on red.
right,
It's almost like that, I felt like. So I reached out to National, and I reached out to the people, I reached out to the hotel, I reached out to like the committee, and it felt like we were getting the ball rolling on being able to book a room and be able to hold like a really cool event, like a wolf pack, like and shout out to Prism God. But like really we wanted to hold an event that like was kind of similar to Culture Collision in a way. Like we were talking about, because I have some connections in Chicago. Like I knew I could get a DJ.
yeah,
Like no doubt I could get a DJ there. It was like, okay, we're gonna get a DJ, we're gonna have trade night, maybe we could do a panel up there, like some Q&A stuff. And they were like, no, sorry, National doesn't approve it. And it was like, all right, man, we're gonna have to take this into our own hands,
it's
and
all good. We'll take it somewhere else, bro.
we got to figure it out, man. We got to do
Yeah.
something. But
Yeah. Time's ticking, but we got to make some moves.
yeah, definitely, because and the thing is, like, the big trade night, like I was there in Chicago, I know exactly where it's going to be again this year. Like it's too packed, it's too crowded, and you got to figure there are a lot of people in this world and in this hobby that probably suffer from social anxiety or don't like being in like really crowded places, and just like don't like large groups, and the trade nights are mobbed, and like to the point where you can't get a table. You have no choice but to spill out into the hotel lobby. So it was
Mhm.
like, can we offer an alternative, and not even to have it on the same night, but
Yeah.
can we offer something that like might not be as mobbed as that the following night?
I like that. Like maybe something a little bit more intimate where you're not. I mean, when the trade nights get all crazy like that, it's just I don't know. It's a bit much, but
Yeah.
that's the hobby. But
Yeah, no, man, and the whole social anxiety big groups thing, I think that's a
Mhm.
real thing, and that's something that we need to talk about and discuss, and just the idea of, I think that opens it to a bigger conversation, I guess. But I guess you kind of know what you're expecting when you're going to national, though. If you're going to national,
Yeah.
then you need to know there's going to be crowds, there's going to be a lot of people, you're going to be doing a lot of
Mhm.
walking, so there's definitely that. But you guys already booked your flights and hotels and stuff for national, right?
Yes, sir. We are just
How long you
officially
guys going
today,
for? What days and nights?
Thursday till and then we're leaving Sunday.
Dude, love
So
it,
we're
man.
there,
Love it.
we're there for a few days. Are you? What do you got going?
So I'm probably gonna only be able to do 2 nights, and I think
Okay.
I'm either gonna do Thursday, Friday, or Friday, Saturday, one of those. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Perfect.
um,
Okay.
yeah, man.
Good stuff. Well, all right. I kick it to Oz for the last question. We definitely want to talk about that banger you got, and then we'll close it out here.
Yes, sir. You're probably gonna have to add that one to your green screen, and that's the 1948 Bowman George Miken. Let's talk about that puppy.
Whew. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's him right there. That's him right there.
Bro, that's perfect. I know it
Thank
says
you, man.
authentic altered, but explain why it says that.
Well, and you know what? I can't say for sure
Sure.
why it says authentic altered, but so I remember when I did, and this goes back to participation is required. Okay, this goes back to this. So about 2 months ago, I put together what I think might have been the first time ever anyone's done it because I've never seen one. And I borrowed the idea from watching people do it with like their favorite football players. Like I saw, like a Tom Brady showcase where only Tom Brady collectors did like their showcase. I saw a Peyton Manning. Saw wrestling card ones. But I had never seen a vintage Instagram live before. So I put together a vintage Instagram live, like, put out a bunch of calls, got some really big names in the hobby. And someone came on, Adam. Adam came on and he showed his Miken, George Miken Bowman, exactly like this. And it was authentic altered. And he mentioned it's authentic altered, and everyone's like, wow, it's a Miken though. It's
Yeah.
PSA. There's only 300 plus of them, slabbed in all grades. So super rare, super scarce. And someone a few presenters later commented, "Hey, just to go back, the gentleman Adam that had that mic in that was authentic altered, I would get that checked out and probably resub it either to another grading company or resub it to PSA because 1948 that set in particular is infamous for having like I don't know if he said diamond cut or miscut, but like they're like factory though. It was a factory miscut. And usually when a card is factory miscut like that, it won't get graded altered because it's known that okay. So anyway, so I've always had that bit of knowledge in my head ever since that from a few months ago. So it's like boom, participation's required. I'm learning all these little things. And I know I'm going to a show the next day. So fast forward, this was just last week, Friday night. I'm on Instagram. I guess that's part of my participation is required going through the story sales and flipping through to see like what's for sale and stuff. And I see this George Miken come up, and I get to talking to the guy or the kid, and we don't make a deal, but I'm like, oh my god, that freaking mic, and I've never seen one in person before ever. So I go to the Foxwood show, and begrudgingly I end up selling my Babe Ruth, and that was something I did not want to move. And it's actually the one that's right behind me, and I got to change out my picture this weekend to showcase my newer cards I've picked up.
Yeah.
So I sell the Babe Ruth. Now I'm cash heavy, and I'm coming home with a pocket full of cash, and which is never a bad thing, right? I mean, the show was excellent. I mean, even other than the Ruth, I ended up doing like 25K in sales, which is crazy because I got rid of like most my what I would consider crap. I got rid of most my low end stuff, most of my stuff that like I'm tired of trucking back and forth. I've had forever. Like one man's trash is another man's treasure though, because someone came and was like, "Oh, I'll take all that. Will you give me a deal?" I'm like, "Yeah, I could do that. I could do that. All that for 1,000." He's like, "Oh, a deal." Like stuff like that. It's like, oh my god, that's like free money right there because I
Yeah, I
thought this
wasn't even
stuff was
thinking about getting rid
worthless.
of that.
Exactly. So anyway, so I go home with money and it pops in my head about the Miken. And I'm like, holy crap, I didn't even think about this card all day. But now that I'm home, I'm remembering it from 24 hours ago. I hit the kid up. I said, "Do you still have the Miken?" He said, "Yeah, what's up?" Boom, right there. I said, "What's your cash price?" Gave me a price, sold.
Nice.
So in the back of my head the whole time, I'm like, okay, I know that these things, from what I've been told from, I mean, vintage experts, I, I, I mean, like, not guys like me, I mean, vintage experts
Mm-hmm.
saying like these things are notorious for this. You need to get it regraded.
Yeah.
That's in the back of my head. But here's the thing: even if this card is not one of those anomalies, and this card actually is authentic altered, it is altered in some way, I still what I bought it for is still worth it. Someone called it in my DMs. It was Nate, the co-host of my show, I believe. He said, "Man, oh, you got the white whale." The white whale. He said, "You got a white whale. That's amazing." And really, the only thing you can compare it to is that I think the baseball Honus Wagner, that there's only like 99 copies of that are
Yeah.
like known. This obviously there's a little bit more than that, but
Got,
this is
got
just
Moby
such an
Dick, baby.
what was that?
I said you got Moby Dick.
Yeah, man. It's just such an undervalued card, and I think the hobby just doesn't know enough about it. But it was the highest selling sports card of all time. I don't know what grade it was, but up until the 52 Mantle ended up taking it over.
Wow.
Yeah, and when when Shaq signed with the Lakers, I put a picture of this in my Miken post on Instagram. When Shaq signed with the Lakers back in 90, was it 97? I think it was
It's around there.
96 or 97.
Yeah.
96 maybe, now that I'm thinking about it. I think he signed Kobe's rookie year. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and they didn't put him on their solo. They didn't put Shaq on their solo.
Right.
You know who was on there with him? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Miken.
Miken.
They were all in their Laker uniforms. How freaking cool is that?
That's
And
dope.
then when Miken passed away, I think back in 2005, when Miken passed away, Shaq gave one of the eulogies at I think he gave one of the eulogies. I could be mistaken, but and he said that without George Miken, there'd be no Shaquille O'Neal. Like
Yeah.
so, like for that to like happen like 60 years later is just mind blowing. So I mean, there's every day I'm learning more about this stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
learning more about the man. I'm learning more about the card. I'm learning more about the set. I'm learning more, and it's like, and this is stuff that these are rabbit holes that I'm going down that I feel like I wouldn't necessarily be going down with a prism.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You
Yeah.
know,
Nothing against it.
yeah, nothing
Just
against it because I own, I
Yeah.
own a decent amount of prisms. You know what I mean? But it just it doesn't do anything for me. It really doesn't. I don't care who the player is. Like yeah, would it be incredible to have a LeBron James gold out of 10? Yeah, that would be really cool. Right? That would be cool, but that doesn't push the needle for me the way that this vintage does.
It's all about the feels.
Yeah, man.
So, Rob, before I kick it to Oz to finish off, let everybody know where they can find you, see
I think
you.
they know where they can find you. Real
Yeah.
quick, the question I was gonna ask you was, okay, so you're doing Sunday Night Live, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then you're gonna have that on Monday on your podcast. So
Yes.
the rest of the week, what's your rest of the week look like from the sports card therapist?
So when I took on this PWCC partnership, I said to myself, okay, now the only way I feel like I can really make this feel really good about it and like have my wife feel good and my family is if it replaces an episode on Sports Card Therapist. So I still only want to do 2 episodes a week. So really what that's going to do is that's going to cut me down to only doing 1 Sports Card Therapist episode a week. So I'm putting the Sunday Night Live recording on my Monday episode, and then Wednesday excuse me, then on Wednesday I'm releasing a Sports Card Therapist episode, and that's it. And I think back to when I was doing the bounce with Amil Sarfane. There were a few weeks there where I was trying to do 2 episodes of Sports Card Therapist and the bounce, and it just felt like too much. Like it felt like too much. And I don't ever want the quality of the episodes I'm putting out to suffer because I'm doing too much content. So even then, I cut back Sports Card Therapist down to one episode a week. I think I did that for about 5 months when I was, doing the show with Amil. So that's basically what I'm doing now. Yeah, there's still going to be 2 episodes released a
Mhm.
week. It just so happens one of them is going to be the PWCC auction.
Gotcha.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I know
man.
that. I know what you're feeling because we're this is the end of what we're calling Hell Week. We've recorded every night this week. It's one of
Every
those. It just fell that way. We're just doing other people's shows
yeah.
and things. Usually we're just twice a week, but
Listen. You guys are getting to the point now, and hopefully you are, but it feels and looks like you are, where you guys are reaching. I think that next level. You guys are reaching that next level of like notoriety and recognition, I should say, because
It might be notoriety, but go ahead.
listen.
notorious.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I think that you guys are reaching that level of recognition where people are asking you to come on their shows.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say no. I say no to more shows than I say yes to. And most of the time now, the only times I say yes to going on other people's shows are if I've already had a relationship with them, prior to like now, or if, I know that like you've co-signed them, and I know that they're like friends of you guys or something
Mhm.
like that. You know what I mean? So it's kind
Yeah.
of like, but by I say no most of the time just because, and it's not, and I'm like, listen, man, I'm sorry, I just don't have the time, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, family is
Yeah,
what
man.
comes first, and I do try to practice what I preach when I talk about balance.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
tough. It's tough when we have all this stuff going on, and you're making deals with PWCC, you're dropping episodes, you're doing roundtables, you're in 30 million DMs. You got all things. You're going to shows, setting up, you're hosting. Like I know, uh, our man Dan says he's the great curator. He says he's the what does he
Oh, the
say?
hardest
The
hardest
hardest
working
working
man.
man in the hobby. But I mean, you might be right there up with him. You know what I'm saying? Like
I
you're,
don't
gi-
want
you're
to be that. He can
I'm just
have
saying, but you're giving them a run for your money. But I,
no,
I, I I see you're trying to pull back a little bit. But yeah,
yeah.
man, you've been putting in the work, bro. But all of that, you can see the fruits of your labor. So we like I said again, kudos to everything you're doing, man. Thank you for coming on. This is always a blast, just kicking it like we
Yeah.
do. This.
Listen, you guys drive me, man. Let me tell you, real quick, you guys have brought a really awesome energy, I think, to obviously to the wolf pack, but just, to me in general, man. Seriously. You know what I mean?
Appreciate that.
Because it's like, um, I just, you guys have a good energy, you know what I mean? And it makes me look at myself and I'm like, you know what? Do like, how engaging are my episodes? What's my energy like, kind of thing. So,
Mhm,
and not that I'm trying to be the next Cousins,
mhm.
but I know I'm
No,
also not trying to be the next Sports Card Lessons.
Right.
yeah,
I'm not trying to be the next, Shane Norton, and shout out to all of them,
yeah,
but it's like, so I'm kind of borrowing from everyone,
yeah.
really. I'm borrowing
Mhm.
from everyone who, I'm close with, and the people that have come before me,
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, baby. And like you
So
always say, sharpening swords, man. Just going
Yeah.
back and forth, bouncing ideas off of each other, and just trying to put out the best product that we can for the consumer out there, so that every time they come away from listening to one of our episodes, that they were like, man, one, that was entertaining, but two, I learned something. And that's really the key, and that's what the wolf pack is really all about. And we're fortunate, Tony and I, to be a part of it. We thank you guys so much for letting us in.
I'm fortunate. I'm fortunate. Listen, you take the title away, you take the name, the Wolfpack, away, and all it really is a group of friends
Yeah.
who all share interests. You
yep.
know what I mean? And
Exactly.
so I'm literally just another bozo on the bus, just like you guys are. You know.
Well, we're a bunch of bozos, but we're doing our clown thing. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, baby, it's time to go to bed, and we're gonna end this like we always do, and that's keep focused, keep positive, and keep collecting. Hey, yo, Tone, bring the beat back.